In my other can and can't video, I presented a single multi-purpose phrase that can be augmented into any ability to do or not to do simply by changing the verb in the sentence. I specifically offered that first because its grammar is, I think, easier for English natives to grasp. And the meat and potatoes of the phrase never changes. You just insert verb. This time it gets slightly hairy. This is what's known as potential form. Although it's less of a mouthful and probably more common to see used, it requires some familiarity with the three verb types and how they conjugate. If you are not familiar with the three kinds of Japanese verbs and how they work, I urge you to please watch my video on verbs and mas form first. It'll make the concepts in this video a lot easier to understand. Okay, now that that's squared away, let's get down to business. Let's start with the irregular verbs since there are only two of them. Suru, which means to do, becomes Dekiru, a great blanket word for can all around. If you only remember one thing about can in Japanese, it should be this. Dekiru equals can, and Dekinai is the negative, can't. Dekinai. And the second irregular verb is kuru, which means to come. It changes to koreru. The next group of verbs are called u verbs, or u verbs. What you're going to do is drop the u and add eru. It's as simple as that. The last group of verbs are ru verbs. The idea is very similar here. Usually you can tell when a verb is a ru verb because it ends in either eru or iru. Although there are some exceptions, they are fairly rare. Shiru and kaeru would be notable mentions because they're commonly used. Conjugating ru verbs is really easy. You simply drop the ru and add rareru. Note, in informal conversation, ra is often dropped from potential form of ru verbs. For example, mireru and tabereru instead of mirareru and taberareru. Once you augment any of these verbs into their potential form, they conjugate just like ru verbs. So in order to use mas, simply drop the ru ending and add your mas stem. Again, if you haven't watched my video on verbs and mas form, check it out. You will be astounded how much it will extend your ability to use Japanese very rapidly. And if you want to specify just what it is you can or cannot do, then we see the o particle I talked about in my having things video come back into play. Object plus o plus potential verb. That's it. See? Not rocket science. So, some examples. The verb hanasu, which means to speak. Drop the u, add eru, and it becomes hanaseru, meaning can speak. If you want to alter this to negative mas form, just drop the ru from the end and add masen, which makes it negative. Watashi wa nihongo o hanasemasen. I can't speak Japanese. As I've said in my other videos, using pronouns isn't always necessary in Japanese, so the watashi wa portion of the sentence can be dropped when it's clear that you're talking about yourself. Such as, Nihongo o kakemasen. I can't write Japanese. Kani o taberaremasen. I can't eat crab. Masen is the polite negative. The informal version is nai. So these same phrases again would look like this. Nihongo o hanasenai. I can't speak Japanese. Kani o taberarenai. I can't eat crab. They mean exactly the same thing, except one is politer. If you watch anime, you might find that informal speech is used more often between characters that are friends or family members. If you've already watched my other can and can't video, then I should let you know that object plus o plus verb can also be used in that sentence structure. So if you wanted to say, I can't speak Japanese using that phrasing, it would look like this. 日本語を話すことができない. The o particle simply indicates that something is being verbed. Lastly, if you've ever watched any of my other Japanese lesson videos, then you know that I always end them by showing you how to turn statements into questions. It's as easy as dropping the watashi wa portion of the sentence and adding the word ka to the end of it. Ka is the question particle. It simply lets Japanese listeners know that you're asking a question. For example, 日本語を話せますか? Can you speak Japanese? それを食べられませんか? Can't you eat that? You can add あなたは if you'd like to be more specific in addressing the you portion of the sentence, but you can omit it if the person you're talking to is clear. Again, mas is polite. You can use plain potential form. You may hear it often in anime. ピアノを弾ける? Can you play piano? In those cases, the context and the inflection allow the listener to know that a question is being asked. That's all there is to it. It works the same way with all the previous examples mentioned in this video. So, that concludes this lesson. I hope that any part of this video has helped you in some way, and as always, thanks for watching.